What is up, fight fans? You are ringside with Roy. Today we're talking about Michael Zerafa versus Nikita Tszyu. And this was a grudge match in Australian boxing. It happened yesterday. The fight was a no contest because essentially the doctor and the referee stopped the fight under the impression that Michael Zerafa couldn't see, because he said, "I can't see," when the doctor was checking him out in round 3. They stopped the fight because he had a cut over his eye due to a head clash. Nikita Tszyu is a southpaw and Michael Zerafa fights from the regular stance. This often happens when a southpaw fights a regular stance boxer. They will clash heads, and they'll come forward fighters, both of them. I think Zerafa was okay in the first round or two. He had a bit of success, but Nikita was starting to find his range. And essentially it was a complete disaster of a fight. A lot of people paid good money. I think it was $70 pay-per-view. I can't even imagine what the gate took, because it looked like a packed house. And a lot of people were livid. They were so angry because they felt that they'd been robbed of what would have been like a great Australian boxing contest. So a couple of things on this. I mean, this, as I said, was Nikita Tszyu. I'm going to maybe make that mistake again. Nikita Tszyu's coming out fight. It would have been the first time that he fought like a really known opponent. This is someone who would have been big on his resume. So he's 11-0. The last guy he fought was a 12-0 fighter that he took his unbeaten record. But I don't know what we can really make of that, because he's not like a really well-known guy. Michael Zerafa, he's been around the block. You know, he's a big name in Australian boxing. I think he's a character. He's a big talker. I think he's a shit talker. You know, the man from Melbourne, he's got his own fans, but I think he's also rubbed a lot of the Australian boxing public up the wrong way. He has a decent resume. He holds victories over the likes of Jeff Horn. He's beaten Anthony Mundine, also Les Sherrington, so like really big names in Australian boxing. But he's fallen short to, you know, big names such as Peter Quillen. Trying to think of who else he would have fought that he succumbed to. But anyway, Michael Zerafa is a personality, and he would have been making a really kind of strong comeback because he had a good 2025. I think he defeated both of his opponents, and yeah, he's a very marketable fighter, and I think a promoter's dream, because he talks trash, and you know, he's got like pre-fight antics that would hype up the contest. And what happened last night or yesterday in Australian boxing was a complete farce. I think that crowd was duly angry, hostile crowd, because you have to think of it from his perspective. He's in there, he's clearly going to get overwhelmed. He's got a really bad cut, which is going to put him at a disadvantage. As a fighter, you know you're probably going to take the L. You've got to have to fight through the blood, and you've got to make a decision whether or not it's worth it. You know you're going to get paid for that fight. So if you quit, it's an easy night's work. You just need to get stitched up, heal, and you can be back. It also means that there's the potential rematch, because you know he's probably thinking that. So in his mind, he's going to go, yeah, okay, I can call it now, and that'll be that. And you know, I'll get paid double the money, as opposed to getting knocked spark out because I can only see out of one eye later in the rounds. If his cut man and his team can't do a good job of trying to close it, although it was a nasty gash, I must say, probably would have been stopped later in the rounds. But everyone else would have thought, well, we paid good money for this. I saw Facebook comments about this fight last night from my countrymen. Again, I'm going to talk about South African boxers as my countrymen and make them sound like my colleagues. But Love Mondo, massive draw back in the 90s and 2000s. He fought Canelo Alvarez when he was just a youngster. He fought Paulie Malignaggi, who was doing the commentary for the fight last night. And yeah, he was furious. And at 54 years old, he was saying, Zerafa, I'll fight you. He's essentially calling him a pussy and a quitter. So, he's not done well he's not covered himself in glory. I think there's one thing worse than being a quitter in boxing, and that's being a drugs cheat. And yeah, he's going to have to face a lot of backlash. And I can imagine from his point of view, he probably feels it's unwarranted because it's his career and he's got to look after himself. But the problem is, he's being filmed, his conversation with the doctor, and he says quite clearly, I cannot see, I can't see. And then the post-fight interview, he has a big man attitude where he's like, let's run it back, let's do it again, it's not my fault, the doctor stopped it, I can see, my vision was blurry, but I would have fought on. It's like, no, you said to the doctor you can't see. If you could see, or if you wanted to fight on, or if you felt like you could continue, like he was saying post-fight, then why did you say that to the doctor? Because essentially it's your word. So yeah, Nikita and his team were also duly pissed off. I think they would have been hoping for a nice scalp to add to his record. It would have propelled him onto the world stage, probably set up some big fights in the future, whether it would have been in Australia or him going to the US. And yeah, he's trying to build a career off of good performances and not just off of his father's his name, in his father's career and his brother's career as well, because his brother's a former world champion, and he's also had to deal with the pressure of having such a weighted surname. So yeah, he would have been angry. But that crowd was, again, I'll say it, they were so furious. They were throwing beer cans, flipping the bird, screaming and shouting. And yeah, I think it's going to massively drop Michael Zerafa's stock. He would have been a promoter's dream, as I said before, because he builds the fight pre-fight. But now a promoter's going to look at him and go, do I really want to take a chance on this guy? And he has now been tarred with the brush of a quitter. So that's something he's going to have to deal with. Where he goes from here, I don't know. I do think a rematch is on the cards. I'd probably say that'll get made at the first half of this year. And he better be ready to try and, turn the critics and the haters into lovers by knocking Nikita out. But the way he fought last night and the way his attitude was, I really don't see it happening. Tszyu, I think he's got his, he's got the Tszyu blood in him. He's a good fighter, he's a good little compact fighter, and he's doing well. I'd like to see more of him. I'd like to see him step it up against good opposition, an opposition who come to fight, an opposition who stay in the fight. Anyway, let me know what you think. If you think he was right to quit Zerafa, if you think it was good that he conserved his career, because essentially, who cares about anyone else? If you're the fighter and you want to live to see another day, and you want to kind of keep your career intact, let me know your thoughts. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. There's plenty more coming from me. Cheers everyone, have a good day.